So today we're going to be looking at NetSkeme. NetSkeme Hydraulic was first released in January 2020, and many subsequent releases are provided to enhance the productivity, improve the performance, and introduce new feature enhancements, of course. So the best part about NetSkeme is the convenience. All you need is a browser. So I'm just going to go to netskeme.com and sign in. Today we're going to be building a regeneration selector circuit using some double acting cylinders. So once you open up NetSkeme here, you'll be taken to the open page, but we're going to start from scratch, and we're going to go to new and select sheet size B. So now we're in the canvas, and we're just going to start bringing in symbols. So here we have our symbol library, and we can look up by model code, or we can find the symbol right here within the library itself. I do have a couple of our model codes for within this. So our first model code that we're going to use is an Eaton pump. It's going to be a variable pump, and we're going to drop it right here in our canvas. So then we're going to flip this horizontally. Next thing we're going to have is, so once you have searched, you can just select this X and it'll clear your search, and you'll be taken right back to the library. So next thing we're going to have is a Parker directional control valve, and here it is. And we're going to drop it right here. So then we're going to make a connection between the two, just so that we have something tying those together. So now we also have a shuttle valve that we want to bring in. From, I believe it's Bosch Rexroth. So we're going to place that right above here. And we are actually going to flip this so that we get the right setup. So then we're going to want to basically give our pump some feedback from this shuttle valve. So using our auto connect up here is going to sometimes give you a problem. Oh, in this case it did not. Sometimes it'll go right through symbols. So in cases of that, you're just going to turn this auto connect off, and you're just going to select where you want all of your corners to be. And then you have your connection. So this circuit actually does have a small manifold in it, and with NetSkeme we don't have our feature like in Hydra, where if you have connection lines overlapping your newly inserted envelope, then an automatic port comes in. That's something that we hope to improve in the future. So I'm going to bring in some SAE O-rings, 16 SAE, and I'm going to place them on the manifold, and they should glue right to it. And I actually want a couple, so I'm going to use copy selection, and it'll quickly insert a couple of them, and they'll glue right to our envelope. So in order to give a name to these, you can just simply double click here, and I want to call this one P1, and I'm going to call this one P2. Similarly, you can just double click on the port, and the port name right here can be changed. So that's our tank. We just hit OK, and it'll update right here in the drawing. So now let's go ahead and make our connections. So we have auto connect on, and we're just gonna place our connections. And as you can see, there is some errors in some of our connection line routing. Simple adjustments, you can just click on the line and it'll actually adjust really easily, and it'll adjust the jumpers and additionally the connection dots as necessary. So similarly, you can move your item IDs out of the way. So now we have some of our pump and shuttle valve assembly here. So we're going to bring in, and we're going to actually create from scratch just a reservoir. And we're just going to place something here. And we'll just call that our reservoir. And we're going to have our drain. So with drafting elements or basically anything that doesn't have this red connection cross right here, you're going to want to turn this auto connect off, so that way you can manually route any of your connection lines, and then you're just going to hit enter and it'll place your connection line right on where you routed it. So now we're going to get into the manifold components. So I have a couple, I believe they're ATOS components. They should be directional control valves. So we want this one. And similarly, we need this one. So we're going to make our connections between our external ports and our directional valves. So I'm going to flip this one. And I'm going to adjust our item IDs. It looks like they might not have adjusted when we flipped. And I'm going to make the connection. Looks like I didn't turn my auto connect on, so I'll just make a quick adjustment. And similarly, this one needs to connect here. And we need to adjust here. This is not on our grid. There we go. So next we're going to bring in a check valve. I don't have a model code for this one. When I had a model code selected, it was not in, I believe, our fluid power tools, which is where these model codes directly come from, actually. So I'm just going to pull a blank one from the actual library and place it right here. And I'm going to rotate right. Now I'm going to make the connection. So next we have a slip-in cartridge valve. And again, there was no specific model code that I had, so I'm just going to pull a blank one in and just insert it right here in the canvas. And I'm going to flip it. So I want to adjust this. So similarly to the grip points, just using the arrow keys on your keyboard will allow you to move symbols, ports, basically anything. You can actually move the entire drawing if you need to put it somewhere within your title block, say. So I'm going to turn auto connect off, and I'm going to route our connection manually because I know it's not going to put exactly what I want here. And I'm going to make some other connections. Now I have a directional control valve. It's non-stackable with a solenoid. And it's just going to be a blank one for now. So it looks like this might be getting a little scrunched up here, so I'm going to make some adjustments. And I can actually make my envelope a little larger if I need to. And everything should extend pretty easily. And I'm going to make our connections. And I'm going to move our tank port here. Looks like we have a connection line problem there. That is something coming up in the next release. Our connection lines should be adjusting a little better. So some of these unnecessary bends should be leaving, and some of the more special cases will route a little better. Looks like I did not click right here. So now let's connect right here to our reservoir. So I'm going to need a filter. And I'm just going to bring a blank one in from the library. And I really want to make sure that it's lined up here. So I'm going to turn my tracking on actually. And these green tracking lines are going to allow me to place that properly, just so that there's no bends here in this line and it's really clear to see. Similarly, I'm going to need another check valve. And I'm just going to place it right here. I'm going to flip it vertically. So just right-clicking gives you a bunch of options. You can scale, rotate, do all of your flipping and rotating, and of course aligning. So I'm actually going to align our ports here, and I want them horizontally aligned, just because we want these connected and it to be neat. So this could get confusing. Now I'm going to turn my snapping off, just because that can be a problem. So now we have our manifold and all of our pump components. We're actually going to now put in our actuators. So we're going to bring in some cylinders, double acting, and we're just going to place them right here. And we need 2. This port's actually going to connect to the rod ends, and this port will connect to our cap ends. And we're going to turn auto connect on. And we're going to make our connections. So as you can see, we have a little problem here. You just pull this down. And we can pull this across. And we're going to move our name and port size down just so that there's no overlap here. Now we have our full schematic. And I do remember pulling in some items from this model code search up here. So within NetSkeme, when you pull those in, it's to help find the symbols more than to bring in our model codes and manufacturers. So for these items, you do have to enter them manually. So like these two were ATOS. And that data is actually going to be helpful in your parts list. So to automatically generate your parts list, you're just going to hit this parts list button up here. And it's going to base it off of all that information you entered. Entered that ATOS information, and that's where it's placed. Now, these parts lists are not automatically updated. This was an Eaton pump. Item number 1 is not shown as an Eaton pump here in the manufacturer. So you're just going to have to reselect the parts list, and it'll place and it'll update automatically. Now, another handy function up here is this Reassign Item ID. Sometimes if some edits are being made or something, you're going to have your item IDs out of whack. And essentially, it's going to insert in ascending order. And if you delete something and bring something else in, it's going to go based off of the next one. So selecting this Reassign Item ID is going to allow for that gap to actually be adjusted. And your parts list, again, won't automatically update, but just a click of a button and it should update properly. Next, what I want to show, we currently have our reservoir, and we can make it yellow so that we can identify that it is some sort of symbol. But if, say, there is no symbol within the library here that you really wanted to use, so my example is going to be this reservoir. I'm going to copy it, and you're just going to come up here and you go to My Symbol Library, and it's going to allow you to open symbol build mode. So if there's a model code that, say, does not show up within the library, send us an email. We'll be glad to add it actually within our Fluid Power Tool system. And in the meantime, while we're putting that in the system, you can actually come into this symbol build mode, you can paste, and then you can actually save. So no connection point, that's fine. So it's going to save this symbol as an image file, and it's going to save it directly to your desktop. So I'm going to save this within NetSkeme, and this is our reservoir symbol. So once you've built that, you can actually exit symbol build mode, and I don't want to save my progress because it's downloaded directly to my computer. So now I can actually get rid of this, and I can bring it in directly off of my desktop. So NetSkeme reservoir symbol. And it looks like I didn't adjust the insertion point like I wanted to, which is not a problem. We just need to adjust our connection lines here. Oh, whoops. Okay. We're going to put our title here also. Regeneration selector circuit. And we can put that I drew it. Why not? So now we have our schematic, and we're going to update this reservoir here. And additionally, to double clicking to get this edit model, you can right click and edit, and I'm going to put in the description reservoir. And I'm going to update the parts list. And just notice this. Now that reservoir appears in our parts list. So once you're done with your schematic, we do have a couple save options. We have DWG 2018, PDF, and DXF. We have a couple other formats through the years just so that it's retroactive. I'm going to save this as a PDF so that way we can actually view it right here on the browser. And this is just a standard PDF file, and anybody can open it as long as they have basically any browser. And they can look and they can see basically everything within the schematic. Now, if you wanted to, you could download this as a DWG, and you could actually import this into Hydra. So it should be opening here. That's fine. So once you brought it into Hydra, there's plenty of things you could do. You could come in here and you could actually put in a lot more information than it is available in NetSkeme. There's also a working line option here. That's something we plan on bringing into NetSkeme eventually. Once you brought it into AutoCAD, we suggest not bringing it back to NetSkeme, as there are some entities that within AutoCAD are not available within NetSkeme. Certain things like hatching, just the capabilities aren't there yet. So do we have any questions? Not seeing any questions. So I'm realizing I forgot something right here. Forgot a motor. So we're going to bring a motor in. Okay. And I'm going to flip this so that I can put it onto our pump. So we're going to adjust our item IDs. Some additional functions that we have, you can group here so that you can move these symbols actually however you would like. And with the connection lines, they're going to reroute basically to the simplest possible routing. Now you'll notice here that it does come out of our reservoir here. So they're going to route as best as they can to these red X's, or our connection points. And you can assign those within the actual symbol build mode. So I am seeing a question. Is it possible to save a symbol with some attributes in it, not to manually type in the model code? So currently within NetSkeme, that is not available. And it's a limitation I found while creating this schematic. So it's one that I'm, and I hope that we can have that one here soon. If you have any other questions, please send us an email at support@netskeme.com and I will get back to you as quick as I can. So can we share our custom symbols with colleagues? So they are saved here within, let me show. They're saved as a PNG file. So the best way to share them, I would say, is through either a cloud sharing service, so like Dropbox, Google Drive, or you could actually manually email them. But it is possible. They'll just be brought in and they should work.
Yeah, great question.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw as Frank brought those up in the browser, you can actually see the image, but the DWG is embedded in there, so it's pretty cool technology.